Hello, hello, how's everybody? God bless, peace be with you, blessed be, namaste, etc. Just sitting here in a park on a little peninsula of sorts. Trees, water around me, a little bridgey poo, and something like that. Oh, I have a little tag here, I'm sorry. I gotta get one of those tripod type things for cell phones, I guess. So yeah, right into it. Yeah, the video I wanted to make about that, how reincarnation obviously is a valid truth. It is true, whether we believe in it or not, it is. And this can be found by diving into the soul and the spirit, and it's not that hard. It just takes a bit of disassociation with your current body, your avatar, and then to start to remember different things, and you can surface very many things. So I may have touched upon this at some point, but yeah, I just want to make it a little bit more of a concise thing. So yes, originally, if you look even at the Christian teachings, it was part of the doctrine and was removed later. So why did this happen? There's probably a few videos out there, or people that are like myself, kind of a die-hard Christian type. I love Christianity very deeply. Was born raised Roman Catholic, but not really denominational. I follow Hinduism, Druidry, Buddhism, shamanism, etc. But at the end of the day, and at the beginning, the blessed truth. Now Christ is universal, and the Alpha and the Omega. So when he said this, knowing all lifetimes, past, present, future, and we are here to be redeemed most certainly in this earth school and figuring ourselves out and coming to the point where we can have a sense of higher, our higher self, higher learning. Our higher self joins back with the ultimate truth, and it takes a lot of time, millennia even, perhaps. And we're in this universe that is vast, and we know so very little about it, but there are universal truths that will exist in all worlds and places. Good is good, wrong is wrong, and we'll have the elements and the combination of things, positive feelings, negative feelings, all sorts of things. This is universal. So on this planet, yeah, we are experiencing these very symptoms and these very conditions that we find ourselves in. So reincarnation is a merciful thing, and it is an appropriate teaching because it is true, and because it is logical as well, and because it is, as I said a second ago, it's the mercy and the long patience that God has to work miracles with every single one of us until we find our own divinity truly and walk with it again. Now, I want to tell you guys a cool little story. I hope I don't make the video too long, but so years ago when I was in my early to mid 20s, I found randomly on the streets, like a sidewalk or on a little pavement portion beside this dumpster, this big book, and it was a Catholic book. It was some sort of dictionary, Christian dictionary, if you will, discussing various terms and such. And I said, oh, somebody just left it there. So I picked it up and looked at it, and it belonged to a church in the downtown called St. Patrick's Basilica, which I have gone to many times since that. So I said, oh, this book doesn't belong on the streets or in the trash. It was borrowed from somewhere, from this place, and had been removed. So I ended up taking it to that spot, and there was a library in the basement still to this day. And originally it was called the Monseigneur French Lending Library. And basically I met a guy who was sort of the curator of the library. His name was Glenn. He was also from Canada, out in the west, from the prairie lands. I think he was from Saskatchewan originally. Red bearded dude, skinny farmer guy, and he was very devout. And I was even in my early 20s, I had uncovered the fact that reincarnation was true. I started to have memories and inclinations. The first past life that I remembered as this white boy here was myself as a Native American or First Nations person in the Americas, and I believe to this day it was in what is now called the Dakotas, North and South Dakota, and I belonged to that tribe, and I felt it very deeply. So my first spiritual teacher, which was a lady named Gina, she taught me that all this was true, and that yes, it doesn't contradict with Christianity or anything really. It's all part of it. But the churches had, not all of them, but had at some point removed these teachings away. So anyway, that was established, and I started to remember other things more vague, and then throughout the years I remembered more and more. But I also realized that the Spirit of Christ was true. I had some interesting visitations with angels. I was able to combat some demons that were giving me sleep paralysis, very hardcore, back in my 20s. So anyways, I won't go ramble into that, but I had discovered it, and yet I stayed loyal to the cross, and I said, why can't reincarnation and Christianity be fully compatible? Of course it is. So I met this guy named Glenn, the farmer from Saskatchewan, and I was trying to argue with him or debate that this was true, and he denied it, and he still accepted me. He said, oh, Lee, you can still be a Catholic and this and that, but I'm not sure I believe you. And then I ended up having a debate, me and this lady from, well, she's Canadian, but she's German lineage. And so it was her and myself trying to debate with Glenn and another gentleman, and I believe his name was Mike. And he was some sort of a seminarian type guy, or he was studying theology at St. Paul's University in Ottawa here. Anyway, so Glenn and Mike were against it, and this lady and I were for the teaching and the compatibility of it. And she said to them, yeah, she was driving by some place in Ontario, and she goes, I remember living there, and I know this house like the back of my hand. So she walked up, she said, here behind the house, this is that, this and that, and she explained it perfectly. And they still didn't believe, and they were a bit stupefied. But later on, after a couple of years had passed, a very incredible thing happened, and a very unforgettable moment. And I didn't think that this would ever occur from who it came from. But all of a sudden, after some years of friendship and, on and off, see the guy once a month or so, Glenn came to my apartment when I lived in Chinatown, and we had a discussion, and I couldn't believe what came out of his mouth. He essentially told me that he met a miracle worker from Nigeria, so an African man who was very shy, very humble, and I believe that he had been some part of royalty. He was a prince. I know Nigerians have a lot of princes and princesses and kings and queens. I don't really know exactly the whole history of that nation. But anyway, so this Nigerian miracle worker was going around curing people on the hush-hush from cancer and different things. He was going in homes and laying his hands on them and curing them. And he was a real, genuine, bona fide miracle worker, and very humble guy, ex-royalty, basically. So Glenn said to me that he had a discussion with this guy, and he said, surely if you're able to do these things, and you're following the true light path, following the ways of God, and you're able to perform these miracles, well, surely the Almighty is with you, the Holy Spirit is with you, you're getting assistance. So you wouldn't be able to do these things if you were bad. Just like, remember when they accused Jesus, oh, you're casting out demons by the power of demons, Beelzebub, blah 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 blah. So even for all the actions and all the beautiful things, people still had very weak faith. Even like today, people are divided between very strong faith and very weak sauce faith, because they haven't thought enough about it or delved into it enough, perhaps. And then they justify the denials, etc., etc. You know the story. So Glenn says to me in my apartment, I remember it like yesterday, he said he talked with this miracle worker from Africa, and he said, sir, I got to ask you a question. You're clearly a true, genuine, bona fide man of the Spirit. And he said he was trying to grapple with the idea of reincarnation as a Catholic. And the Nigerian miracle worker told him, Glenn, of course it's true. Why do you think God would only give you one chance only, and you make or you break it? What about all the babies or kids that died? God is going to cast them into eternal hell? That's ridiculous and preposterous, dark teaching. Now, unfortunately, Catholic Church, for all of its good things, it did get infiltrated by darkness a long time ago, and still is to this day. They have warring factions on the inside, but hopefully, they can purge more and more. So anyway, Glenn said to me that this Nigerian gentleman, he said to him, yes, of course it's true. Of course you'd have more than one chance, more than one lifetime. God, he's working with all of us. We are all works in progress. Certainly so. So of course it makes sense, even just from a logical, spiritual perspective, that you'd have more than one lifetime to learn things and to unlearn different experiences, different countries, to test and to taste, to sample, and to grow the spirit, because we are spirit first and foremost. We are not the body. The body is already dead. The joke is on us. We are the walking dead already. Like all those zombie shows and dystopian futures. We are literally the walking dead. The body is a death sentence at a certain duration of time for whatever decades that it is allowed. Or sometimes, children die quite young, unfortunately. And some people live to be, well, way past their prime, into their 90s or 100 plus. Crazy. So all these different varieties of lifetimes, of course it's sensical, and of course it's merciful, and it's just, it is true. So my suggestion is to delve into this. Many people probably already know these things, but I just want to sort of reiterate a little bit and talk about it, because here's what I was told by some quote-unquote insider knowledge. The Catholic Church decided years ago, they said, well, if we give people infinite chances, they're just going to think they can postpone their own enlightenment forever and ever. Oh, next time I'll do it. Whatever, another time. And so they were worried, the church fathers and such, they were worried that people wouldn't care, or they wouldn't have that sort of passion and zeal. Now, like I said many times, I have a background in shamanism, Hinduism, Buddhism, lots of things. I studied very many things. And for me, they're all interconnected and relatable. They don't have to contradict each other that much at all. Not really. They really don't. So you can marry them all together and have a bigger, broader, point of view. And your spiritual body, your emotional body will be at balance with these things. So the early church said, if we don't say much about it, they didn't really say yes or no to it. They just sort of let it, kind of let it go away. The teaching of reincarnation, so that people might have an idea to sort of have that zeal, that thirst to find truth and to wish to get out of this world. Because this world is very, it's good and bad. It's light and dark. It's gray. It's purgatory. It's jail. It's school. It's hospital, as I always say. So the Almighty wants to give us many chances to sort of develop ourselves and have our intelligence rise and our spiritual side rise. Now, if you look at other denominations, they never really took these things away, but they're sort of maybe cast aside, or was meant for the more esoteric rather than exoteric teachings. But if you go into the spirit and have encounters with different beings and ask them, and if they belong to the spirit of truth and light, they will tell you the same thing. I'm not making it up. I'm not the first to say it. But yeah, it has to do with the, like I said, disassociation with the human body. And don't tell yourself, I am this, because you're not. It's just the vehicle, as the Hindus have been saying since the beginning of time. This body is a vehicle to learn enlightenment. It really is, 1000%. So sometimes we need a life of zeal and thirst for knowledge, and sometimes we need a life of simplicity and absolute peace. So all the inclinations that people have, it's valid to some degree, as long as you're not doing dark things to other people and don't harm yourself too much. But certainly the evil in the world is my good, my increase at the cost of you. And that's the evil in the world. That's all these scientist types and money mongers and warmongers. And for whatever reasons that they do these things, they're doing it for greed and selfishness. And they wouldn't mind killing anybody to see their own gain. Whereas the opposite is the actual truth. What Jesus taught, or Buddha, it is, I will harm myself, put myself vulnerable out there for your benefit. It's complete opposite. So the world leaders, the world rulers, they've been criticized since the beginning of time because of their vast levels and disproportionate selfishness. So even after time, God doesn't even want to necessarily cast those people into some sort of grand punishment, but rather when he says, I take pleasure in your conversion, not in your death, but I will give you more than one lifetime. Even Jesus said, John the Baptist is Elijah, whom you were waiting to return. Said it plainly. So unfortunately, a lot of churches directly contradict the teachings of Christ. In the different Buddhism sects, they do the same thing. In Islam, everywhere. You have different factions and varying opinions, right? But the truth will be singular and it will be all-encompassing. So again, it comes down to, do you want to find it or not? And are you willing to make sacrifices with yourself to find these higher things? Anybody in the world in 2025 at this point, we are basically in the last days at this point, let's be fair, we all feel it. At this point, do we want to deny truth? So Christ's whole life was an example, redeeming humankind through being a son of man, a child of the creation of humanity, which is the highest creation here, the human being. Not to say that justifies us to destroy the planet and trample on everything, but no, we have the highest human life form here in as far as bodies and incarnations and forms, elements and spirit combined into one, right? So this just means we fell through, or we came into the world and fell through the humanity, and now we're being redeemed through the humanity, such as the Son of God to redeem. So Jesus' life is walking poetry and beautiful mystic truth, mystic opulences, and doing all these wonderful things. And the death, humans have to die, but death could not keep him, being born of the Virgin, conceived of the Holy Spirit, which is true, and not impossible for the Almighty at all. So people's conception of God, what is it not? Well, God is not limited to our thinking, that's for sure, but we seem to think so a lot. Oh, well, I don't understand, I don't think about that, so therefore it's not true. I don't feel this way, therefore it's not true. That's called fallible argument. I didn't get this and that, therefore nobody else can. That's a fallacy. That's a fallible argument. It goes against logic even. So, death could not hold the Son of Man, who was the divine Redeemer, and so he transfigured his body as a poetic representation of us. If we are holy, we get to rise out of this planet. That is the teaching of Christ. Reincarnation is certainly true. And over a period of time, we will wean off the darkness and gain into the light. Now in the Bible, it's very cryptic and interesting when it says, those who are good go on being good, those who are evil will go on being evil, and those who are holy to go on being holy. Feed my lambs, feed my lambs, feed my sheep. So Christ is talking to Peter. You know, he was redeeming his own when Peter denied Christ 3 times, and the cock crowed, cock-a-doodle-doo, and then he wept bitterly and ran away. So Christ wanted him to feel better. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord. Of course. So feed my lambs, feed my lambs, feed my sheep is the original translation. And that means over time, when spirits are growing and the entities that are in the bodies are learning more, that they will be more matured into the spirit and able to eat solid food, not just little milk, like St. Paul says, right? Feeding you with solid food now that you're ready to receive it, rather than just the basic teachings. So it takes time, and it is complicated, and the Almighty knows this. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to mention that. I'll cut the video out, 18 minutes long enough. I wish you well. I hope these things can sink in. If you do believe me, wonderful. If you don't, that's fine. But ask yourself if it is true, whether or not your immediate emotional response enjoys to hear it or doesn't. But ask yourself, what are the reasons for these things? And I promise you it's true. Christ is real, don't deny it, and reincarnation is real, and we can learn from many, many faiths and combine it into one beautiful thing. There's so many treasures in the Eastern philosophies and spiritual teachings, for example. Shamanism worldwide has wonderful connections with nature, which we have kind of detached ourselves from. So let's think about it and bring it into unison and make a healthy planet and try our best to bring heaven upon earth, hard as it is, especially in these ugly last days. But we shall be redeemed. All right, guys, much love. Love you. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, ciao.